All right, these are your hair notes for forensics. So hair is an appendage of the skin. It grows out of the organ called the hair follicle. The shaft of the hair has 3 layers. They are the cuticle, the cortex, and the medulla. Hair is made of keratin filaments and it aids in protection of your skin. So here is a picture. You can see the hair follicle is this part under the layer of the skin. Sebaceous glands, there's oils right there. And we'll talk more about the layers right there. So a cross section. So if we could get closer, this is a drawing, you'll see actual pictures in a bit. The cuticle is the outside right here. The cortex is most of everything else inside of the cuticle. And the medulla is, we'll get into that, is this layer right here in the middle. All right, so the cuticle is on the outside. It provides strength for your hair, and it helps your hair stay intact so that when it's left behind, there's very little chemical decomposition. It retains its structure, which is why hair can be a good piece of evidence for forensics, because the cuticle protects it. It has these overlapping scales, and they vary by animal type. So here are drawings of them. Humans are overlapping like this. Cats are different from mice cuticles. So here's an actual close-up picture from a microscope of hair, like human hair, and the cuticle. So that's that outermost part. So you can see they're just kind of layers on the outside. The cortex is inside the next layer. It's in the main body. It is the main body of the hair shaft. It's very important for forensics because it has the pigment granules, and that's what gives hair its color. So more pigment granules and kind of different size, color, shape, all that is going to give different hair colors, and that's what they can use for identification. The color of your hair is determined by melanin, which is also what determines the color of skin. The color, shape, distribution of these granules, that's what they use for comparison. So the medulla is this cellular column in the middle. It's in the very center. In animals, and quite a few of them, it's the predominant feature, meaning sometimes you might only see the medulla. You might not even see the cortex, or it's definitely more than half the diameter. It varies from animal to animal and even from one individual hair to another. So you could have 2 hairs from the same animal or from the same person that could have different medullas. And their main classifications are continuous, interrupted, fragmented, stacked, or absent, meaning they don't exist at all. So you can see some pictures here. Continuous is just a straight line. There are no breaks in it. Interrupted are going to be a few short breaks. You can see a couple here and here. Fragmented are going to be smaller pieces, so more break than actual medulla. Absent is not there at all, and I think I've stacked maybe on the next slide. So most human hair does not have a medulla, or they have fragmented. Mongolians, the Mongoloid race, they'll usually have a continuous medulla, okay? But most humans do not. Animals, however, tend to have a medulla. Like I said, they take up most of the width or the diameter, and they tend to be continuous or interrupted. So you can see here's human with a medulla, kind of fragmented, interrupted. Dog, deer, it's like the whole thing looks like the medulla. Rabbit, you got a whole bunch of these little kind of weird, it's like a whole bunch of stacked medulla, but it's most of the width. Cat has a stacked medulla. It looks like little beads, like a string of pearls. Okay, and here's the mouse medulla. All right, so how do they compare hair or identify it? So the purpose in the crime lab is to determine first, is it animal or human hair? And then do we know if it comes from a particular individual? So like if we have this known sample and we collect this unknown sample, we could call these a match. All right. So we're looking for things like the color of them, the length of the hair, especially depending on if the root is involved or the bulb at the end, the diameter, the medulla patterns, and then color, dyed versus natural color. So it's not difficult to determine what type of body hair a sample is. Like you can determine if it's arm hair versus eyebrow hair versus armpit hair. In general, race can be determined from a hair. It takes a lot of time and a lot of care, so not always, but it can be done. You cannot determine how old someone is or age from hair. And sex can be determined, male or female, if a DNA analysis performed from hair alone. You cannot tell male or female. DNA analysis will only happen if there are some skin cells attached to the end of the hair. And then nuclear DNA, when we talk about DNA later, we'll get more into this, requires actual skin tag, so more of a piece of skin attached. So when hair is collected, either from a person or from a person as like a suspect or a victim, even for collection and reference as a sample, they'll get this from everyone. They always collect it from the same part of the body that they assume the hair is from. Okay, all of the hairs, and they're going to collect 50 hairs. So 50 head hairs. Then they're not just going to cut them out. They're going to take the whole length of the hair. So it's going to come from the root and everything. And they're going to collect it from everybody, including victims, especially at a suspicious death. They're going to do it right at the scene of the crime. So those are your hair notes.